took the other one.
By the authority vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that may come before it. So the first, council did have an executive session on legal and employment matters. The first item on the agenda is land use matters, public hearing and ordinances. There's a public hearing on conditional use application for 826 to 828 Fayette Street. Mr. Peters?
Thank you very much. I will briefly introduce the application, if we could go on the record, please, and then I will call Ms. Stetler up. This is probably one of the last ones she'll be doing for us, so enjoy it. This is application Z-2020-01, Eyeball Properties LLC, for the property located at 826 Fayette Street. It's an application for a conditional use from zoning ordinance section 1203 to permit a doctor's office at the location, and Chris can provide you some more details, and I know Mark Danik, the attorney, is here as well. The exhibits that we'll be marking, B1 is the application itself, B2 is the zoning determination dated December 2nd, 2019. B3 is the Planning Commission report from their meeting on January 9th, 2020. B4 is the proof of publication for this hearing. I'll note that the Planning Commission's recommendation was that the application be granted, subject to the condition that the applicant comply with all representations made in the application and at the hearing. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Stetler.
See, you just couldn't get rid of me.
We tried.
Soon, I know you tried. Thank you very much. 826 and 828, like many of the other properties in Conshohocken, is quite unique. It appears to be one building. It is actually two separate lots, two separate parcel numbers with the same owner. 826 has previously been used as a barber shop with an accounting office in the back and an apartment on the second floor. 828 is the eye doctor's office, and there is an apartment on the second floor as well. The doctor's office is considered a non-conforming use because an eye doctor's office was in place before the 2001 zoning ordinance was enacted. 826 was also a non-conforming use, but to change that to a doctor's office, it would require that's a conditional use activity. It's a use that requires council's approval. The owner of the property proposes to break through the wall between the two buildings to expand the eye doctor's office to both the first and the second floor. This has to be. This is now in the point because a medical office is considered a conditional use, so it needs the conditional use. We can't just expand the non-conforming use of the doctor's office at 828 because you cannot expand a non-conforming use into another building onto another lot. So that's where this becomes one of Conshohocken's unique situations. So with that, I will give it to Mr. Danik, and he can explain the situation to you.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Mark Danik. I'm here with Dr. Brett Neal. He'll be the operating doctor. And then before you should have the plan that we submitted. And I'll just give you a brief overview, and then Dr. Neal will explain how it's going to benefit his client, patients, and everything else. So as Chris said, it's a conditional use just for 826. He's going to, if you look at SK02, we have a demolition plan, which is your smaller plan in the upper left-hand corner of the first floor. That just simply shows what is existing and then what they propose to remove.
Excuse me, Mark, can you slide that over a little for us, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
There you go.
Do you want to adjust the...
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the existing and then the dashed lines, which you don't really see too well, but it shows everything that is going to be demolished and removed on the second floor demolition plan. This grayed out part is staying as existing, that's the apartment. And then this is what is existing on the second floor of A26 that is proposed to be removed. When you go to what they're planning to develop, you can see that they're going to be removing the front door for A26, expanding the glass. What they really need is a waiting area for the patients, additional exam rooms, and then the second floor of the A26 will now be office space for the doctors that will be treating patients on the first floor. And then I guess with that, I'd just turn it over to Dr. Neal to explain a little bit about why you need to expand your practice and why it's a necessity that you be able to expand into the next property.
Why do we need to expand? Well, thankfully, we've been growing steadily, and we're reaching a point where we lack physical space in the current setup. We'd like to keep wait times short and keep appointment slots available, and having some extra exam rooms will allow us to do that. I'd also like to bring another doctor in, specifically my wife, if she will take the position, and having some extra exam lines for her to work out would be needed. Is there something else that was supposed to?
But I guess the main thing is you're seeing.
But why do we need to go into that space?
The floor track. Foot track.
Well, we can't expand in any other direction because the road is there. We can't go back. That's really the only direction to expand. So it made the most logical sense to go through the wall there.
And then without this expansion, do you think your doctor's practice would be stifled in growth?
Oh, yeah. We're closing in on where we can get to without more space.
So in an effort to keep business in Conshohocken for the residents.
Right.
Seeking a special exception, or the conditional use, excuse me.
If you could show me on there where you're gonna put the new entrance?
But it's still on the corner.
Oh, it's still on the corner. Oh,
So
okay.
the old
Okay.
doorway here for 826.
Oh,
which I think
okay,
is
I see.
center,
Okay.
They're replacing that
All right.
with glass, and then you
Okay.
see the row of
Yeah.
waiting room seating.
Okay.
So what's gonna happen on the second floor?
The second floor on the barber, what's currently the
On the
barber shop side?
barber
Our vision therapy team is going to use that. Vision therapy is,
So it's gonna be part of the office?
yes.
Go ahead, Tina.
How many existing exam rooms do you have?
2.
And you're just adding one additional?
No, we're adding 3 additional.
3 additional. Okay, so you're looking to run
So there's
basically
3
2
Right.
providers.
Correct.
You're setting up to run 2 providers.
Yes.
And then what is the turnover for a vision practice for patients? So if we were looking at 5 rooms, 5 patients in the rooms, 5 patients in the waiting rooms, like what is that turnover?
Time-wise,
Time-wise,
what you're asking, right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's
trying to figure out.
parking for
Or-
people coming to you.
I guess probably patients per hour.
Yeah, patients per hour kind of
Per
deal.
hour, 2 to 3 typically per doctor.
Per doctor.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you, and thank you for enlarging and staying in the borough. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
That's
And thank you for
great.
making the bill number 2020. That was very kind of you. Whoever did that.
You're welcome.
Neal.
Okay,
Thank
with that, just a few more things. Mark, the glass that's going to be installed on the front, there's a requirement under 27-1204 that it be consistent with the existing facade. I assume that the applicant will be putting glass in that is aesthetically consistent with the facade?
Yes.
With that, that's the only question I have. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? I'll let the record reflect that there is no one. Is there anyone here to speak against this application? And again, let the record reflect there is no one. With that, the hearing in this matter is closed, and it's my understanding that council will be voting at a later meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a hearing regarding a waiver of off-street parking for 108 and a half Fayette Street. Chris Stetler, you're up again.
This is an interesting proposition because in December, You granted a waiver of off-street parking for the business of Style of Man to move from 108.5 Fayette Street to 117 Fayette Street. The owner-operator of Style of Man has entered into an arrangement with people from Edwards Freeman, from the owner of Edwards Freeman, and they would like to use the 108.5 property as a candy store. It is a very small site. It is an irregularly shaped lot. It backs up against another property on Forest Street. So there really is no way to put any additional off-street parking on it. Karen is here, who's the owner, and she can explain a little more about the business and hours and what they hope to do.
Back, everybody. So, Rob Nelson, who is the current owner of Edwards Freeman, and I are trying to get into business together at 108.5 to put in a candy store. So, I didn't realize this. Edward Freeman's has been around for 121 years. And it seems as though anybody over the age of 45 grew up with Edward Freeman and they know it very well. People under the age of 45 who have children have no idea what Edward Freeman is. So we thought it'd be a great idea to bring it right to Fayette Street. So it will have a different name. It will be called the Conshohocken Candy Company. And we are looking for a waiver for off-street parking. Most people who are going to go to Edward Freeman's, that's a destination. When you have a little candy store, it's more of a spontaneous purchase. We have a ton of kids going to Flacco's who get their Catholic school uniforms and their sneakers. And if anybody has children, you know that bribery is the best way to get that done. So they're already parking at Flacco's, so they can come in, grab candy, and leave. I see it every weekend. We have tons of people down at Nudies who are waiting to get sat. Well, if you got to keep your kids busy, what better way to go to a candy store? So during the week, we will have one operator during the day. We will have possibly a second operator in the evening. On the weekends, there will only be 2 operators on Saturdays and Sundays. So our foot traffic will be people who are already in Conshohocken, who are already grabbing lunch, or hopefully at Amerisource Bergen, or who are at Nudies or at Flacco's. And then any of our workers will be 1 to 2 a day. So we're just asking for a waiver for off-street parking. And this spot is kind of a weird space. Again, it's a little bowling alley. So candy store we thought would be a great idea, and we could use a little bit more retail in our little section of Conshohocken. So, and everybody likes candy, so.
Okay. Questions from anyone?
Sounds like a great idea.
I have to say I'm very excited. I've been saying that Edwards Freeman should do this for years. It's a great thing, and it's a great location for it. And you're right, it will be walking customers. So I think you're welcome. Anyone else? Any questions? Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda.
Be acted on at a later meeting?
It will be, sorry, go ahead.
Will this be acted on this evening or at a later meeting?
It'll be voted on at the voting meeting at the end, before the end of February, so the 19th.
Yes. Next item on the agenda is manager matters. Oh, nope.
Yeah.
Conduct an interview for the zoning board hearing alternate. Bernadette? Good evening.
Good evening, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in.
Sure.
I'm just now making the connection. Bernadette, why do you want to serve on the zoning hearing board?
Thought it would be a good opportunity to be able to serve the community. I had the opportunity to do so before with the Shade Tree Commission from 2007 to 14. And I'm just interested in being able to offer an objective view to the future of our community, future of Conshohocken. Do you have any zoning experience? I wouldn't say I have zoning experience per se. I have been in the landscape construction industry for about 25 years. I've worked with a lot of different, I've worked with commercial clients through the years with helping work through the plans as to, what types of hardscaping is going to be installed and how things, so I'm familiar with that end of zoning, but I wouldn't say that I'm overly familiar with zoning like Chris would be.
Okay, thank you.
What do you believe the role of the zoning officer is, or zoning official on the board?
Without doing any extensive research on it, I would say that it would be to be able to pick through the information that's put in front of us, look at things objectively, be familiar with what the ordinances are, what the rules are, and make decisions based on the facts.
Okay. Do you think there's any particular issues that need to be addressed by the zoning board?
I'm sorry?
Do you think that there are any particular issues that need to be addressed by the zoning board?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, there's, just, we're a growing community, so I'm sure that there's a lot. But I don't have any that I would say that are,
Okay.
particular to me.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Just, are there any specific accomplishments that you're thinking that you can bring or make as a zoning hearing board member?
I mean, I would say more in the sense that through my experience in working with the community as well as within my career, I'm very detail-oriented, I'm organized. I'm willing to listen when people have something to say. I don't like to prejudge. I like to delve into things sometimes, when it needs to be done deeply. I play well with others. I work, and I can also work well on my own when given assignments. So I would say more in a general sense, that's what I'd want to bring to the committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bernadette. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, very welcome.
Bernadette, just as a housekeeping item to confirm, so I know that we reached out because there were openings on the zoning hearing board for permanent positions.
Mm-hmm.
You did communicate that you were interested in the alternate only, is that correct?
Yes, at this time.
Okay.
I may consider the permanent down the road, but I'd like to start
Okay.
slow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is manager matters. Steph?
Thank you, President Leonard. The first item is to consider approving an RFP for the Sutcliffe basketball courts. This is a capital business item in your budget for 2020. It is currently slated at $144,720. That is earmarked in the budget currently for this project. This is the first step in terms of the draft RFP is in front of you this evening. It lays out the scope of services that we'll be putting out to the public, looking for bidders to respond to the RFP. Again, the scope of the project is basically taking the current basketball courts that are down there. It's a surface redo. It is also the actual basketball standards being redone, the grading, everything that goes along with the actual project itself. So if you're unaware, currently the basketball courts at Sutcliffe Park have cracks in them that are, they need to be addressed, which is why it is a capital budget item for 2020. And we are hoping that when the RFP is advertised, we will get some good bidders in and get the project done in a timely manner. So just from a timeline perspective, it is again on your agenda this evening for discussion. The scope of work and the proposal itself has been reviewed by administration and legal at this point, so it is pretty much a final document unless you have any input that you'd like to change. It will be back on your agenda on the 19th for a vote, and then if so inclined to approve it, it would be advertised on Monday, February 26th. And the intent would be, if we receive the bids and they're within the amount budgeted, there would be the consideration to authorize the actual award of the bid would be in April. So you'd be looking at pretty much ballpark May, June project start time.
Okay. Do we know how long that takes to get done? Do we have any idea or not really?
Not really. We have
Okay.
asked in the RFP that they lay out a timeline.
Okay.
So when we receive the responses back, I will have an answer for you.
Okay.
Do we have any teams that play on that over that time frame where we think we would be down?
We do not currently. The intent with doing this project is that we would hope to be able to offer a league of some sorts or other leagues such as 3-on-3 or 2-on-2 or 4-on-4, et cetera.
And will we be looking at doing the same configuration with full and half courts?
That is up for debate at this point. We are currently evaluating whether it is better to have 2 regulation size courts as opposed to 1 regulation size and with 2 additionals. So we're doing the layout right now and doing some research. We're looking at other municipalities and what they have done and what they're able to do when they have more regulation size and what we can fit down there.
Do you need a motion?
No, it's on for discussion, and if there's any feedback that you'd like us to change or add to the RFP, it will be on your agenda on the 19th for a vote.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is to consider approving a fee waiver request for an informational event at Sutcliffe Park. We were contacted by a resident in Sutcliffe Park. His name is Russell Kerr. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here this evening because he is on vacation. But he feels that there is a need down at Sutcliffe Park for the neighborhood to gather, just so that the parents and adult residents in the area are aware of events and things that are currently happening in the park. So what was submitted to us was a request to have a rally of an informational sort of adults at the park on February 22nd, I believe it is. And I know that the mayor and the chief have previously met with him. I think he is approaching this request from being a concerned citizen, and we've had vandalism down at the park, and he wants to get the message out, in particular about the park itself and what it has to offer and the safety of the kids that utilize it. So we've communicated to him that if he wants to utilize the park is a public place and he could do that on his own. But I think from his standpoint, he just wanted to solidify the fact that he would be able to utilize it on the date and time and the pavilion that he wanted it, which then requires an actual rental form. And then, of course, if he wants the fee waived, then it has to go in front of council. So that's where we are.
So what's his intent? Is his intent to be a representative of the borough park?
No, it doesn't have anything to do, so again, like any private event, it wouldn't be representative of the borough. I believe this is a personal initiative that he is taking on. Again, he's not here to speak for himself, but he has a son, and he uses the park a lot, and his son's friends use the park quite a bit, and he's trying to just be a spokesperson for those group of youth that utilize the park and make sure it's a safe place for them to utilize.
He was the president of Little League for
Right.
years.
So-
His home is at the back of the park. He's very involved in the Sutcliffe Park.
Right.
But is he an expert in what he wants to talk? I guess I'm just trying to understand how and what messaging. I mean, does he just want to bring people together and talk about what's going on? Is he going to portray being an expert in public safety?
Well, I don't think we as the borough, no, we can't. The only person who's an expert in public safety in terms of our community is our chief of police, our police department, and our emergency management team. So no, that aspect of it, which is why if you're going to consider this evening, it's conditioned upon any and all event details being approved by administration and our police department.
That's what I was going to ask.
So,
as long as it
no,
goes
if there are concerns that you have that you would like to report back or clarity that you need, we can do so with the understanding that he would need to provide that information,
Right.
subject to review by those individuals who are experts in those areas.
That's where I would feel more comfortable. If that's what his intention is in our parks.
Right.
That our expertise actually
Yep.
has a voice.
You say you just had vandalism down there, right?
We've had vandalism, yes, at
Yeah,
Sutcliffe
so
Park.
He's more or less, it's like a town, you want to get the neighbors.
Well, the borough's not in,
I'm talking about him.
But here's the thing about a neighborhood watch or a town watch. If that's needed, it will be instituted by our police department. It won't, it can't come from a resident
Right,
initiative.
and
So-
that's our concern.
So if that's
Right.
the intent, then that intent needs to change. If it's a parent of a youth that has concerns with the park and he's wanting to just make sure the parents and the residents in the area are buying into the park and what's happening, then that's a different story. Quite frankly, if that's what he wanted to do, he could just do it. I mean, anyone who is a resident, that's a public park, it's a public place. So if it hadn't been brought to our attention the way it was, and then if it hadn't been requested that the space be reserved, and there hadn't been a fee waiver, quite frankly, this conversation could have happened and we would not have been aware of it to begin with.
Right.
And I guess I just wanted to be that we either see the agenda beforehand, and that it's not sanctioned by the borough, that it's just an individual resident.
Well, like
That
all
was
reservations,
reviewed by-
it's not, nothing,
Okay.
these types of events are not borough events, so.
Yeah, you're not allowed to regulate the content of the events, right? Because that's freedom of speech, it's a public place. The real question is whether or not for this type of thing you want to waive the fee. And it may be that you want to institute a policy that you simply don't waive fees for these types of events.
So this is not for tonight either?
It is for
It is
tonight,
for tonight.
considering the date of the event, so.
I think he's trying to rally the Little League back. I mean, there's a lot of young kids in the borough now, a lot of families, and years ago, we had 400 or 500 kids playing baseball down there.
So I think that's why an agenda would help me understand what is his intent. That would be wonderful if that's what he
Yeah,
wants
I
to
mean,
do.
Just ask
I think
Yeah.
if it's not a borough sanctioned event, you can't ask for an agenda.
Can't, no.
You can, however, make it conditioned upon there being police or administration oversight of what eventually is going to happen in the public facility, since they're requesting a fee waiver. That's really your only caveat in terms of
And I would
having
be,
a
I would be
decision
more
point.
comfortable with that.
So when we have requests for events in particular, so that we're consistent across the board, just to be clear, there are conditions that we place on those events. And at some point, they are, for example, site plans or emergency or parking. We go into a myriad of factors depending on the type of event. So in asking them, in approving it conditionally, you are doing the exact same thing you would do for any request that comes in front of you. So I think for your business purposes, in this particular instance, if you're going to consider approving the fee waiver request that's been put in front of you for consideration, then you do it conditionally based off of administrative and police department review and approval of not so much the content of the event, but the method by which it's held. Because that's really what the concern is that the use of the public facility is used in conjunction with the rules and regulations of the borough.
Correct.
So that being said, then we have the whole thing of fee waivers again. And we've had this conversation before that we can't, we've got to have some type of meat behind what we're waiving. And is that charity events? Is that
Right, so up until this point, your guidance has been
charity events?
youth
And
youth organizations that are set up and designated as Borough Conshohocken organizations and charity events.
So am I correct in understanding also that technically he really doesn't even have to come in for this?
He doesn't. He
could do
He
it anyway.
wouldn't. Quite frankly, if on a Saturday, a group of residents decide they want to utilize the park,
And sit under the pavilion?
then they can. That's the whole purpose of a public space. That's the whole purpose of the parks itself.
So in
But-
that aspect, he's being very respectful asking for something he doesn't necessarily have to.
I think the method by which the information was brought to us made it so that he had to go through the process of our facility rental requests.
But he's used to doing that.
Right, because he was, right.
I salute the guy if he wants to try to, do something about the park, and there is some issues down there. I got a complaint the other night about the kids are down there, and they're on the picnic bench, and they got the music going, and they're using foul language, and so maybe they're concerned about that, There's always, during this time, And believe, that park is used, that basketball court is used all the time. When it's cold, when it's rain, people don't know when it's raining, they play down there.
Right,
And I
right,
mean, it's used all the time, and kids are kids.
right.
You know, you get the 15, 16-year-olds down there, and they start using the foul language, and it's been that way for years. But we always seem to get it under control.
Right.
So maybe Russ is just concerned. I don't think it's gonna go, I can ask him myself, I know him.
Right,
He's a nice guy, he's got a nice family, he's been in Little League for a long time.
right,
I can hit around and say, what's your intentions here?
yeah.
You know, that's all.
And the only reason I'm asking is because if it's beyond just a parents group taking accountability to help monitor that, and we actually need to help support that with borough resources, then it would be two different subjects, right? So that's why I'm asking questions. If it's really just a parents group trying to get together and say, how do we get our kids in line, and how can we all be part of that, I would say that makes sense. I think him coming to us made it more difficult for us to be having this discussion, quite frankly.
Right, so I think what will help, or I think what might help in this scenario is the way I would be comfortable, based off of how we do other approvals, is that you, if you want to, you approve it conditioned upon the fact that the chief of police, given the nature of the request, will discuss with Russ Kerr what will be taking place on that day, and that there'll be some sort of representation from the borough who's on site.
Just to support him, I don't want to leave him hanging.
That's exactly my,
Right,
I don't want to speak for Russ Carr.
Right.
I wish he was here.
right.
I think everything that everybody's addressed, I think he does care about the park.
Yeah.
I think he lives right there.
He lives right
He was involved in Little League, and I think that, the mayor and I, to outline our meeting, he just discussed these concerns, and he had brought up the fact that he may, get some parents together, and I was like, yeah, it's your park, and if you're concerned about it, I think it's a great idea to have adults in the park. You know what I mean? And when I heard that he went with a route, that's not how it was. That's not how
It sounded more like a meeting
Yeah.
when we had our talk. Yeah.
He's a neighbor there. He talks to the other neighbors. He cares about the park. I think he just wants to take a step forward. And I will, I'll talk to him, and
Right.
maybe I'll go. You know what I mean? I'll see what he
I
That's
just want
all
to
we
be able to support our residents. If there is truly issues, and we know that there has been some concerns down there, to leave them just kind of come up with plans that actually could be our responsibility to come up with plans around, we should be able to support that. That's my stance on it.
Okay. So would someone like to make this motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is a financial security escrow release for 304 East Hector Street. What you are considering this evening is to approve 304 East Hector Street financial security release in the amount of $10,395.
I'll make that motion.
Second it.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider approving the 239-301 West 4th Avenue Phase 2 Financial Security Release Number 1 in the amount of $70,032.50.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item, so we have what is called a municipal winter agreement in place with PennDOT, and there was a change to the mileage in our roads, the way they calculated them, in essence. So what they're asking for, basically, you need to do an amendment to the current agreement that is in place so that their calculation can reflect how they are accurately now calculating what they call snow lane miles. So this is a housekeeping item. We receive state funds for taking care of certain miles within our jurisdiction, and we are reimbursed for our work.
So we need a motion to approve Resolution 2020-02, authorizing the execution of the Municipal Winter Traffic Services Supplemental Agreement with PennDOT.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is to consider approving the submission of a grant application to the Transportation and Community Development Initiative through DVRPC. So this opportunity, the first time we discussed this was with West Conshohocken was back in December. And then when DVRPC announced that it's called the TCDI grant, we brought both municipalities together. We actually met in Borough Hall to discuss the possibility of submitting for the grant, West Conshohocken as the applicant. Conshohocken would be the co-applicant. This is the first step of the process. So it would be a joint municipal grant application, which makes it a stronger application. And the application would be focused specifically on traffic initiatives that would improve traffic, basically from the flow from Conshohocken to West Conshohocken and from West Conshohocken back to Conshohocken. So the bridge that we all know and love. The first portion of it is applying for money for this grant in particular, which would enable us to do a wide scope of a project and analysis of options that would help alleviate the traffic. So certain examples could be, we've talked about dual left turn onto 23 on the West Conshohocken side. There's other options such as new exits off of 476 or redirecting traffic onto different roads. Anything that would potentially be in our best interest for both municipalities to alleviate traffic, which is our biggest issue. So in order for PennDOT in the future to allocate funds to a municipality to actually carry out one of these projects, you're in a better position if you have a shovel-ready option. So the point of this, of applying to this grant in particular, is to get the funds, to do the study, to have a shovel-ready option available on the shelf. So when PennDOT says we have this amount of money available for a project, and they're looking at the pinpoint of traffic in Montgomery County, we can say, here you go, PennDOT, fund it, and let's get it done. Mm-hmm. So it's not a short-term fix, it's a long-term planning, but it puts us in a better position to be able to be selected to actually have something done from a traffic perspective that could really alleviate the issues that residents and visitors deal with on a regular basis.
So I want to say thank you to the administrative team on both the West Conshohocken and Conshohocken side to actually start these conversations. We've been sitting here talking about traffic issues and the idea that there is definitely an issue on our side which stems from the West Conshohocken side, and for a long time it felt like we were both pointing fingers. It's your problem, it's your problem. What I want to say is thank you for opening the doorway and using a grant opportunity as a joint fix is actually something that I'm very pleased to say that we're breaking through some of these your side, our side issues and looking at trying to address what our residents' concerns are with not being able to come up with ideas for fixing our traffic issues. So thank you.
You're welcome. The grant for the planning would be up to $175,000, and there's a match component to it. Right. So instead of paying the $175,000 out of pocket, what we would be asking is that you would allocate approximately $20,000 as a 20% match, but both municipalities would split that 20% match. Should we be the recipient? So again, contingent upon us being actually selected and awarded the TCDI grant, we have to place in the application that the borough has allocated the grant matching funds. Okay. So for tonight, given the deadline is February 21st, I would be asking for a motion to approve the submission of the grant application to the Transportation and Community Development Initiative through DVRPC and to allocate the $20,000, which is currently budgeted in your 2020 budget. It just it was allocated as a pocket basically of grant money, and we'd be taking $20,000 and earmarking it for this purpose.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
When I was talking to Stephanie today, I asked about contacting all of our representatives. So if you have any residents that are concerned about the traffic, this is the time to tell them, contact Representative Mary Jo, contact Senator Hughes. Let them know we have 8,000 residents that are interested in getting this funding and working on our infrastructure problem, because it's a bigger problem than Conshohocken can solve by ourselves. We definitely have to work with West Conshohocken and ultimately PennDOT. So I think this is a good opportunity for anyone that wants to participate to get involved with contacting our representatives.
Great.
Good thought.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is to consider appointing council members to serve as the voting delegate and the alternate delegate at the 2020 PSAB Annual Conference. Anita Barton has volunteered to serve as the voting delegate, so the first motion I would need is to appoint Anita Barton as the voting delegate for the 2020 PSAB Annual Conference.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
And
Motion
then
carries.
the next item of business, is there anyone who is planning on also attending the June 2020 PSAB Annual Conference that would serve as an alternate delegate? We do not need to have an alternate delegate. That is up to you solely.
Where is it?
Hershey.
Oh,
And what are the
the
dates?
hotel or the?
Anita, what are the dates?
June 10th to the, 13th, 10 to the 13th. It's 4 days.
Okay. We don't have to
Right.
No, you don't
designate
have
that
to
this
delegate. I
evening,
usually
but
don't have
I
one.
think the important thing for tonight, as we're registering, is appointing Anita. So if we're
Thank
good with
you,
that,
Anita.
then we'll leave it at that.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay, the next item is a discussion item, and back in December, we had presented to council items as it relates to initiatives for the parking task force. And one of the items we discussed was Maple Street in particular, and the issues with parking that we're currently experiencing on Maple Street. So the parking task force had come with a recommendation, and there was discussion that was had, recommendations, concerns from council and from the mayor in particular, that we brought back to the parking task force at their first meeting in January. And what was presented to you originally has been tweaked slightly. So what's in front of you this evening is a revised request with the goal of ensuring that street parking for residents is satisfied while still maintaining parking for patrons of businesses in the area. So the solution that the parking task force is proposing, based off of the feedback they received from the conversation with council, was to do two things. One was to create a resolution that establishes a residential permit parking district on Maple Street between West Elm and West 3rd. So the scope was much larger previously, and it's been shrunk down to West Elm to West 3rd for the residential permit parking in particular. And then the second portion of that was an ordinance which would establish a 2-hour parking limit within this new residential permit parking zone from West Elm to 3rd Avenue, and that would be from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So in other words, there will be 2-hour parking only from West Elm to 3rd from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. unless you have a residential parking permit.
And Steph, is this that whole area, both sides of the street?
Both sides of the street, yes.
Okay.
And again, this is for discussion only this evening. So just to walk you through the process from here. So we're dealing with a resolution and we're dealing with an ordinance. The ordinance is going to require that you authorize advertisement of the ordinance first. So the resolution and the ordinance would run concurrent with each other. We wouldn't be approving one and not the other. So the next step in this, if you're inclined, would be on the 19th, there would be authorization to advertise. With that advertisement, we would also be sending out public notices to the residents in the area to make sure that they actually see the advertisement that's going out, as this will affect them, the residents and the businesses. And then, so really you wouldn't be voting on any of these regulations until March because of the,
After the notice.
you have to advertise and then you would have to consider it again at the next available meeting.
Okay.
Can we talk a little bit about
Yep.
how this could look?
Yep.
So it's going to be a residential parking permit district,
Correct.
both sides of the street, from West Elm to Third.
Yes.
So if I have a residential parking sticker.
Yep.
Then I'm entitled to one of those spots for longer than 2 hours parking.
Correct.
If I come home from work on Friday evening at 7 o'clock and there is no parking because of the 2-hour parking limit, even though I have a parking permit, I have to drive around the block and wait for somebody to leave before I can actually then take my spot?
Well, it would be the same scenario that they're currently dealing with now. So if there are no, it's not, with the permit parking, you don't get a designated spot, you get a designated zone that you can park in if there is parking. So if it's 7 o'clock, meaning that the 2-hour window is no longer applicable, and I can go into a business in that area and not park for 2 hours, then yes, my car can sit there without it being in violation of the ordinance, which means if you have a residential permit parking for that area, then yeah, you could be out of a parking space.
What benefit does this multi-faceted approach give me as a resident?
Nothing.
Okay, I'm just asking.
That's not quite, so when I lived in Washington DC, this was very, very common. This is how they do a lot of their parking areas. And you won't have long-term non-residents parking there. That's really the only benefit during the day.
So it wasn't, the decision for the multifaceted part of this wasn't just created out of nothing. So we authorized Pannoni and Associates last year to do an evaluation of the commercial district a few blocks in on either side. What that data illustrated was that you have a high influx of parking in that area during business hours, and then you see a dissipation of those cars after hours. Right now, a majority of the congestion and the frustration is being created by the construction.
Yes.
Once the construction leaves that area and becomes contained on its site, that area might look completely different. So the multifaceted approach of this was based off of information that was actually provided to us, meaning the Parking Task Force and the Borough, through that parking study that was created by Pannoni and Associates. So no, we're not just reacting to construction that's happening, which is causing headaches for individuals. We had our traffic engineer do a study of that area, which illustrates the fact that there are certain hours of the day where there's high congestion, but there's also certain hours of the day where there's not. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. were hours that were specifically picked based off of the hours that are happening mostly with the construction.
So after 6 p.m., there isn't a 2-hour limit anymore. So so I wasn't involved in the parking task force or
Right.
any of this. So I'm going to ask
No, you should.
from
The purpose of this conversation is that you vet out what the parking task force is recommending to you.
So from my perspective, till 6 p.m., then it's a free-for-all again, and then we're giving, and this is a perception of mine, that we're giving guppies preferential parking over residents, and that's my perception.
Okay?
Absolutely right, because that's a pretty good, popular place.
So on the east side, on Harry and the lower avenues, is it always 2 hours? Or is there a time limit on that?
Where on Harry?
So by the
Spring Mill and
church.
Harry,
So
right
that was
there.
going to be my next question,
Yeah.
is how do we handle the first
Right, on that side by
100
the
block in
restaurants.
Spring Mill, where those restaurants are?
Well, I know in Harry it's 2 hours, because I've gotten a ticket.
Yeah,
Right.
and is that all the time? There's 24
Yes,
hours?
it's all the time.
The time.
That seems to work.
Yeah.
I got 2 tickets.
Yeah.
Because I didn't read the sign.
Yeah.
And I paid them.
Yeah, I paid mine.
I went and paid them. Oh, I paid them.
Did she, George? I'm only kidding.
That's before George.
I'm just,
Right.
you have an option in this scenario.
It's just
to-
the visual, the optics,
Right.
it's
Well,
something we have to
You
talk about.
you have the option to consider the alternative, which would be to just make it residential permit parking and forget the 2-hour limit, or remove the time frame for the 2-hour limit. So if
2-hour limit all the time.
you could do 2-hour limit all the time.
Or except
The
for right
reasoning
in front of
behind the
Buc-ee's.
6 a.m. to 6 p.m. was because we believe, and our traffic engineer believes, that the majority of the congestion is being caused by the construction, not
Yes.
by guppies, by the construction in particular. So if you are trying to tackle the construction portion of this, then it is the hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you want to think past the next 18 to 24 months, you might be looking at no issues in parking because you have 200-plus spaces that are now available at Two Tower Bridge, which everyone using the commercial district should be pushed towards. And then you're going to have another 150 spaces in a 12-story parking garage, which is closer to the commercial district than Maple Street's going to be. So,
That's okay, I'm just gonna keep asking questions.
Yep.
I'm just gonna keep firing questions. So 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the day?
yes.
We do not have parking attendants at that time, we have police officers, correct? So is this going to be a task that will be given to the police officers, that they will be down there monitoring? Because if I'm a construction worker and I'm working right there, I might just move my truck back and forth and still stay in the spot. I don't know how it works, I'm just asking questions.
Do you want to take that one?
And I could look stupid here asking the questions,
No.
but I'm gonna answer the questions.
You have to have this conversation.
Right.
If you're,
Isn't that what
we made a parking task force for the person.
Why do you do that? That's because you work in the city. It's like, okay.
Yeah, you made a parking task force for this very purpose. You asked them to identify and highlight the major issues that the borough is currently dealing with in terms of parking. Their job as an advisory board is to bring back to you recommendations and suggestions. It's not for you to just approve them, it's for you to evaluate how they got to that point and whether it's something that you feel is in the best interest of the borough. So this is exactly what should be happening. It's a perfect example of how a task force works.
Did they do this at different hours? Like, did they do it knowing that the construction guys were going to be there? And then did they do it after the construction people left?
They did it on different days and at different hours throughout the day.
Okay.
But we got parking enforcement from 6 to 6, right? During the day, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, because-
we have it during the day till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, because I get up in the morning, I see all these guys from construction, they're parking all over the country and walking to work where they know they're parking all day.
That's the time of when people.
Like down on Hector Street, 3rd Avenue, I see them. They park their car there, grab the lunch kettle and
Yeah,
go
I guess
down
you
to
can make
work.
it longer
The
than
cars there all day and people can't park. I know this on the other end of Hector Street and everything, people complain about it.
So,
Then they're doing the same thing, they park there and walk down to the train station, and the car is there all day.
so
do that.
George, what kind of extra manpower, what does this do to the
two-
police
We're going to
department?
enforce it.
The 2-hour zone is being enforced in that area now.
Okay.
It, for whatever reason, when the 2 hours came into play, Maple Street was never brought in as, as
Part of
having a 2-hour zone. So that's being enforced now, in the same area, First Avenue, 2 Maple Street, Second Avenue. So that wouldn't change other than adding a couple blocks.
Okay.
So as far as enforcement, no, it wouldn't require, and, the stress there, the stress is the daytime and the evening hours. That's the stress.
So, go back to Tina's question. Will the construction guy be able to move his truck?
Yes.
Them sites are pretty strict, especially the union. You just can't walk off your job and move your truck
Okay.
unless he does it at lunchtime. So.
But
here's the thing.
hypothetically, yes, if they wanted to move their car and move it to a different spot, then they're still legally parked.
Well, you're right, but most of these, you can't just walk off the
Right.
job and say, I'm gonna go move my car, because I've been through this with my company,
Okay.
with unions and all. But anyway, if you go downtown, it costs you $25-30 a day to park, okay? So if I'm a construction guy, and I used to be paying $125 or $100 a day, I just leave my truck there all day. What's the ticket worth?
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
A $10 parking ticket isn't going to be.
It's $20.
$20.
But, you know, like.
I'm getting off, I'm saving $80.
Right now,
So-
they could park there and it costs them nothing and they
Stay
take the
overnight.
resident's parking spot all day.
So why don't we make the zone 200? If you get it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Make
can
it
we do that?
200 plus. You get a $200 fine.
Can
They
we
won't
do-
bring that truck back if they get a couple $200 fines.
But then what do you do with all those
You'd have to
construction
do it
workers? Where do they
consistently
park?
throughout.
We're supposed to, we're supposed
You
to be
can't do
making
it based on zones?
I mean, you'd have to have a reason.
Oh, well, I think
Well,
we have a
there
reason.
is a reason. We're taking the residents' parking.
No, I mean a financial reason. A reason that it costs more to the borough.
In other words,
We need the
Than
money
any
too.
other
Tell them we're
2-hour
broke, we're
parking
trying to.
spot.
We're trying to do our infrastructure.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
It's not
why
fun.
could we not? No,
An easy pass
but the
to-
reality is, there is a reason. We have a dilemma.
Yeah, but it
Down
has to be
there.
a financial reason. What's the difference? How does it cost our police department more to police those spaces than any other space? That's the question.
Okay.
Well, it's very expensive for a police, what's a police officer making an hour?
No, I don't. I know that, but you have to be able to
they're
distinguish
not
it
free.
from any other 2-hour space, and that would be hard for us. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that would be hard for us to do.
So is this something that could be done as a temporary
To try it?
thing?
Yes, it is. Just like we've done previously. You could do an experimental regulation.
Okay. The only thing is if we have to have residents pay for, if we're doing, like for a temporary time, how much is the cost of permit parking?
Good question. Do you know what's
There is a fee, I don't know.
I don't think it's a lot, right?
not.
I
It's not a
don't
lot,
know.
but they-
$10?
if you apply for a
$10
permit
for the year.
now, you have to pay.
You'd you'd almost only be able to offer the permit for the temporary time period. I mean, you couldn't,
Right, that's what I'm asking.
right,
Like, is it,
How much is that permit?
that's what we
I
don't
think
know.
it's
Yeah,
like
I-
$10
I
or
have to look it up.
$20. Something, $10 or $20,
That we
I
could
think.
address. I mean, we could make the permit cheaper.
Right, that was my
For a
question.
shorter
I don't want to,
Right.
if it's a lot of, I have no
Do we
clue.
give 2 per address? How would that
Right,
work?
right now, the way it's drafted, it is 1 per address.
Okay, because then the concern would be if there's rentals
Yep.
and you have 3 people there, that,
Okay.
because that's
As-
part of
as
our
one
parking
per-
problem
one per
also
address.
is 3
So-
adults with 3 cars on a property.
I think also with the advertisement
it's
of it.
$15.
Okay.
You're not a rental.
So with the advertisement of it at the next meeting and the notices to the residents, I think that is probably an important part of it too, before we make any decisions, is getting the feedback and the concerns from the actual residents that live there.
So if you're doing it, does the temporary get advertised?
No.
No, so
No,
if you're gonna do it temporary, you would do it by resolution, which then doesn't require advertisement. So I understand that notices, you're still requesting that notices go out to the residents before
Right.
you would consider voting on it. It just changes because you wouldn't actually be passing an ordinance, so it would be temporary, and it doesn't require the formal advertisement. So we would just have to schedule it accordingly per your meetings to make sure that there was enough time to notify the public
Right.
so they could voice any concerns they may have.
Okay, so I'm going to keep asking questions, sorry. 6A to 6P, the objective is to discourage the construction people from parking down there.
Correct.
We're discouraging them from parking there, but then Ike brings up a very valid point. You're pushing them then into the other parts of the borough.
They're going to find a place to park. Correct.
So where are we at on the parking lot? We were going to make a parking lot for them to use.
So Equus,
Excuse me, I wasn't at the last meeting.
That's okay.
Last parking lot.
It didn't come up.
So-
it
Oh.
came up at the parking
Oh,
meeting,
at
the
the
parking
parking
task
meeting.
force meeting. So the update was that Equus came back with certain financial components that Intech has not acted on. We reached out to Weinman, who owns the location somewhat adjacent to Seven Tower Bridge. His response was not a favorable response. And then we talked about utilizing 7th Avenue. So the borough has put in infrastructure like fencing and gates and curb cutting in order to be able to utilize that for construction parking. So that conversation, we've done what we need to do to prepare infrastructure-wise. And then we've agreed, the last conversation we had was charging around $2,500 a month to utilize that space.
And that was submitted to.
That was discussed with Intech, yes, correct.
They never got back to you on that either?
Not that they haven't gotten back, just that we don't have an answer.
So are they waiting us out so they don't end up having to pay?
Could make the argument that their timeline is such that they're waiting until they can move on to their site.
Uh-huh.
So you're saying that we can't up our tickets?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying you need to have a rational basis for it. So if you're going to up your ticket, it needs to, I mean, there's the penalty portion of it, right? But you'd have to actually demonstrate why those
Fix our
tickets in
roads.
particular are more, and you absolutely can't do it to raise capital funds. That's.
No, I just mean if we could find a way to force them to go to the parking lot and stay off our streets, and make it,
Well, what you could do is you could certainly increase, as long as you do it borough-wide, right? So if you wanted to increase, and maybe there already is a distinction between a 2-hour violation versus a 2-hour violation in a residential parking area. I don't know if we have a distinction between.
No.
So that's something we could look at. The
Okay.
distinction, as long as it's borough-wide, I think we could justify that distinction.
So you're saying that we have a parking lot that they can use, but they're not using?
No,
They
I'm
haven't
saying
agreed
that
to it yet.
there was 3 options that were discussed with you at the close of 2019.
Right, what I'm saying, you just were talking about
So Equus, the property that is, the private property that is owned, am I not answering your question?
no, you're getting
I
ahead of me.
think she's
Oh.
7th
The
Avenue.
one that we were just talking, not the one up 7th,
Okay,
the one that you were saying that they're not parking in.
their own?
No, isn't there one available for them?
No.
Right
No?
now.
No,
Oh,
not
there
right now.
isn't. Okay.
No, there is not.
Not right now.
All right, I thought, I misunderstood. Okay.
Is there any way to
Our
have?
highest parking ticket right now
No?
is $100, and that's for a handicap.
Oh,
Yeah.
Because it's a more serious violation.
right.
So that's the highest
So is,
parking ticket. The fine for a stop sign violation set by the state of Pennsylvania is $25.
Right.
It costs you a lot more of that with all the fees they've added over the years. But the $25, when I started as a cop 35 years ago, it was $25. It's still $25.
Which? The stop sign?
Yeah, the fine is, that has never changed. David's just tacked on, the bureaucracy has tacked on all these fees over the years that makes it expensive.
So we're
But-
bureaucracy, we're the government, can't we
Right.
tack on fees? I'm just trying to figure out, how do you penalize? Because you're right, Bob, a $10 or $20 ticket is nothing.
They'll leave it there all day.
So the answer is yes, you can, as long as you do it borough-wide. So
so could we do it, as Jane's question, she's
Right.
trying to ask, can we,
Can't we just have it no commercial parking?
That's what I was thinking.
or
No
more of a
construction
fine?
parking.
Construction parking, you see that at different,
You do, but I'll tell you
Then where
that
do they
it's
park?
very hard to enforce.
Yes.
I mean, it's, how the heck do you figure, I mean, if you have a construction worker that lives in that town,
well, he'd have a permit.
Or he'd
well,
walk.
he would have a
Live on the
permit, he was
street.
gonna say they're more than 2 hours, right?
But if he has a permit, he can stay.
But he might not have a
But he might
permit.
not have a permit if you're only issuing one per house. So
Oh.
that's somebody you'd want to be able to be there for 2 hours, but you could exclude.
Let me ask this question. Are we rehashing what our parking task force has already done? Like, are these the discussions our parking task force has?
to get to this point.
To get to this
that
point, I
they've
mean,
gotten
are
to
we
this-
are we just kind of drilling stuff that's already been talked about and looked at?
Yes, I would say that it's been multiple meetings for them to get to this point, but ultimately, you're the decision maker.
Right.
So they've hashed out issues that they feel are relevant. They have a traffic engineer in the room when they're making these decisions that are guiding them in a direction. It's a
I mean-
very uncomfortable situation that to try to mitigate for such a short period of time
Right.
is, it's unfortunate that.
So
And
maybe-
if we don't say yes to something and try something, are we just dragging it out? I mean, we can go round and round here, I'm sure, for hours.
Well,
Or are we just dragging it out where it's going to get to the point where we're going to get past it and they'll have a solution already?
Well, that is, every time they come to you with a recommendation, then you're going back to them with things that you would like them to consider, then it's another month, and then it's another month, and then if you're talking about advertisement, then it's another month, and at that point, we might be telling you like, oh, they're contained on their site. Or if you're talking about the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then the 6 p.m. afterwards, there not being the 2-hour limit anymore, we haven't utilized the agreement that you all made for the borough, which gave them an extra 200 spaces after 6 p.m. at the Two-Tower Bridge parking garage. If we're starting to advertise that now that the construction is almost complete there, and we're using signage and resources and Park Mobile to push people to that garage, then maybe after 6 p.m., which is your concern, that they aren't using it because they have a garage to park in. But we don't know that.
And I think I'm just kind of drilling, and I'm actually circling back, because I had to go through that whole process. We did appoint a group to hammer out all of this. It wasn't really, this isn't something that we have to hammer out. And this is in my head, that we have a very well-informed, we have got traffic engineers. Maybe we just have to move forward with something to get something in place.
Well, I think what the process that you're putting in place is you're looking at a resolution and you're looking at an ordinance. You still, as Borough Council, have to vote to advertise the ordinance, and then you may have the public that is in that area that come to you and say, we love it or we hate it. Mm-hmm. In which case, the system that's in place is taking place. So I think you put a task force, you appointed a task force to work through these issues so that what was presented to you was what they felt was a thoroughly vetted solution. You've based that information not just on perception, based off of a traffic engineer doing an evaluation, and he made a recommendation in that parking task force meeting as well. You then are considering it, and then it will go to the public for consideration. And you may hear from the residents of Maple Street that it's not what they want,
Right.
in which case you don't act on it.
So do we also have the option, if we vote to advertise this, and we get the response and concerns back from the residents, do we still have the option to make it temporary at that point and not go through?
Yes, you do.
Okay. To see what happens in the future after the construction.
The construction really is the crux of all of
Right.
this, because Guppy's doesn't even open until 11:30. So if we're looking at the 0-100 block down in that area, Guppy's isn't even open, and then until 11:30, their staff parks elsewhere, and then from the hours mid-afternoon, they have maybe 5 different customers that are
Right.
coming in there. So it's not
What
the
about the
daytime.
lunch crowd?
Well,
It's usually from in town, from the
Yeah,
businesses.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
foot traffic.
Karen and I spent a lot of time last fall on Maple, and the concern was not nighttime. No, that's what I thought. So I would have thought the nighttime crowd would be the concern, but we heard about the daytime crowd over and over and over.
Okay.
Saturdays, Sundays, and Guppy's.
Yeah, but then other people clear out for, they go places.
Okay.
I think it's on a work session for a purpose. You're talking through a recommendation that's been made by a parking task force. You have a week and a half to think about what you've discussed, if you want to take it back to residents in your area, whomever, and then it will be on your agenda for advertisement only. You're not voting on anything in 2
Okay.
weeks. You're voting to advertise and send out public notices. And then it won't be on your agenda until March to vote on it because of the advertisement cycle that's required.
And when do we think the additional parking with Pulver will be ready?
It should be, I believe that the last part of the construction that needed to happen has happened. So the last remaining portion of it is the gate, which will be placed in place of the bollards that are there.
Okay.
And then the idea is you have 56 spaces now, as opposed to 46 on the top deck, which is public. And then at 6 p.m., the gate would open. So everyone from the public will enter at that top deck entrance that currently exists, but they'll be able to make it their way down into the rest of the garage. And the last thing that needed to happen was the installation of that gate, which should be happening soon.
That's great.
So that could solve if there was an evening issue.
It could, we need
We don't
to
know. We
see
have to
what
try
happens,
something.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have any more. I
Okay.
can't think of anything else to poke a hole in.
Separate from this, do we need to talk about the Temple grad student getting permission to do that listening session?
Yeah, but you'll do that, if you want to do that during your council member matters.
Oh.
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe what Ray had a good idea, what he's gonna direct with the sign he has, people to parking areas, maybe we get one for the construction people and say, construction workers park here. For Pulvers and an arrow to Pulvers, because they need direction too. They're gonna come into town and just go wherever they wanna go.
Well, they shouldn't be parking in the Pulver's garage. I mean,
No,
So they can't
during
go,
the day.
they can't go in the Pulvers.
no, not
they can't during the day.
Not during the day.
Day.
Yeah.
No,
because
because that's for their,
Brickstore's in there.
Yeah,
right, that's for their tenants.
Yeah.
But we have 10 more spots during the day.
But it's,
So you could get up early and come.
those construction vehicles will not. Go ahead, yeah. Okay.
Big trucks.
Okay, any other discussion on that particular item?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so we'll put it will be on your agenda for advertisement on the 19th.
Okay.
And then you will advertise it, and we will send out notices, and then you will see what response you get, and then it will be on your agenda for a vote in March.
Okay.
Okay? Great.
The next item is department matters. We are consider approving resolution 2020-03, I'm correct, right? Resolving to collaborate with the National Fitness Campaign to implement an outdoor fitness court and to make fitness free to residents. There she is, Lauren.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Thanks for having me present tonight.
Sorry we made you last.
That's okay. I'm in front of you tonight to talk about the National Fitness Campaign. The National Fitness Campaign, the goal of the National Fitness Campaign is to encourage a healthy lifestyle by manufacturing the National Fitness Court, which is an outdoor fitness gym. I have a presentation that I hope is loading right now. And you'll be able to thank you. So, and you'll get a better understanding of what exactly it is. So, here's a little video I'm going to show you, and we'll go from there.
We're changing the way America thinks about fitness. With 200 fitness courts open, our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm Mitch Menadger, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. This year, 2,000 certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our National Fitness Campaign. We'll also be hosting training camps on college campuses across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs, learn the moves, and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. NFC partners and sponsors are providing $30,000 grants to 250 qualified cities and colleges in 2020. The National Fitness Campaign is a social enterprise and I take no salary. So all the money we raise goes directly to building fitness courts across America. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support free fitness. Wherever fitness is a priority, you can find a fitness court. Building beyond 200 cities and colleges, we're now partnering with large cities using urban movement data to map the best locations for pedestrian infrastructure. We're bringing fitness courts to within 10 minutes of population centers everywhere. We're now committed to raise $150 million to bring the campaign to 1,000 cities and schools by 2021, building the largest fitness movement in the world. Join us and let's make world-class fitness free.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get back. Okay. The video explains a lot, so I'm just going to go through and then I'll answer any questions you may have at the end. As you saw, the outdoor fitness courts have been around forever. I'm sure that you've seen pieces either staggered alongside trails or tracks at local parks. In 2012, it was reborn, and you see what's in front of you today. They also integrate a digital ecosystem to support healthy living. I'll go over the ecosystem just as soon as I explain the fitness court. So it's a 7-movement, 7-minute system. It includes muscle-ups, rowing handles, pull-ups, squat boxes, lunge course, agility ladders. It provides varying and progressive full body weight workouts. It can support 28 users at once. The ecosystem that I was just speaking of, it gives you support, so it will show you training, it will give you routines, audio workouts, visual workouts, tutorials that include high-intensity interval training, upper-lower body, or like I said, full-body training. It can also list classes that are held there and take registration as well. It provides analytics, and then along with their ecosystem, they also provide ambassador training. So ambassadors would be local instructors in the area, whether we have a lot of fitness businesses within Conshohocken and the surrounding areas, and then also instructors at the community center as well. So they could become ambassadors. They're provided training through this ecosystem on the fitness court and how each piece works. So that's another way that we can utilize it, other than residents or people working in that area utilizing it on their own. But they do have some help with this ecosystem. Okay. Again, here's a little bit about the app that they offer, and the app is free. As far as the actual size of the court, it's a 38 by 38 concrete pad that's laid, and then a rubber tile surface would be laid over top of that, and then the equipment is bolted into that surface and the concrete. So next I'm going to talk about location. Location, right, is key. As you saw in the video, their goal is a pedestrian destination. So with all the growth that is at the lower end of the borough, I was thinking that the perfect place would be Haynes and Salvati. There's a lot of construction, there's a lot of houses, there's a lot of ideas that could be happening there as well. The idea is for people to walk to this fitness court. It's a unique opportunity. I think it fits the location. The basketball courts would stay, and then the fitness courts would round out that park, along with some parking. So my goal for this is to hit a certain demographic. We have amenities for children. We have amenities for dogs. We have amenities for all different kinds of people. This would be to target the young adult population, and it's a growing demographic within Conshohocken. And our goal as the Recreation Department is to serve all. So you might ask then, what's the fiscal impact? And I'll discuss that. So we already received a $30,000 grant from the National Fitness. We've been approved for it. Okay, so if we decide to move forward with it, we would have that $30,000 grant. As you can see, the letter was provided there. For 2021, I would be asking for a capital budget item of $130,000. That would include the items to purchase. That would include the fitness court itself. It would also include the concrete pad and the excavation that would go along with that. Public services, I talked to Ray, and we would be doing the install for it, so that would take away that cost as well. That's really all I have for my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Lauren, have they given you a lifespan for that equipment?
Yes, it lasts up to 25 years, and it is low maintenance. They do provide paint to go along with it that may need painting of the equipment.
Okay.
What kind of warranty is on it?
That's a good question that I don't think I have the answer to, Anita, but I will.
So just to clarify, we are presenting this evening in preparation for what will be your budget
Next year.
conversation for 2021. So like we've done in the past with your other parks, we've presented ideas during the course of the year so that when you get into your budget conversation, you have the details already in front of you. Because it has to be built into your overall considerations when it comes to capital.
Right.
Haynes and Salvati right now is a park that has been on hold. So we removed park equipment for safety reasons, and we've been grappling with different ideas. If you look at, as Lauren stated, the demographic that is in that area, and the future of what is to come, which has all been approved, we believe that this resource is something that you should seriously consider when you're looking at your overall park infrastructure, especially since you'd be offering an amenity that is not offered anywhere yet in Montgomery County, and that we currently don't offer in the borough.
Within these last years, our park system has seen revitalization. We have Sutcliffe Park, we have Marywood Park, Aubrey Collins is being done, so this kind of just flows with your goals.
Have you looked at other sites?
We've as an
B
administration
field or-
discussed other options, and this just seems to be the best location. There's already so much that goes on at Sutcliffe Park. You have the baseball fields, you have summer concert series, our senior field is rented out pretty much every night of the week. There's just so much down there already.
What about the B field?
Well, that's rented out every single night.
Right, and I don't know if it's the right demographic for,
And you're talking about a more residential
I
area
thought
there
about,
as well.
it's really not.
I think,
Parking
so when you look at what they were promoting, it's by the trail, by different trail systems, and our trail system is right there, and that was going to be a question, is do we have an entrance or exit off the trail that would be easily, where we could then add signage promoting that?
There would be with the development of Equus.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
Right,
Okay.
so this is planning for the future. It's planning for what is to come.
Oak Street too, wouldn't be too far, yeah.
I think it complements all of our programs at the community center, and I think too, people are eager to work out outside. That's
It's
one of
true,
the
and
things
I think
because
that
it combines
it's promoting the community
nature
and other,
Right.
instructors and businesses as
Right.
well.
Right. No, I think it's a
It's
wonderful.
a great location, yeah.
This would be tied into the fellowship house.
It could, yes. I mean, it would be ours to maintain. It would be something that our instructors would offer classes at this location.
So you
Absolutely.
could offer the membership, if they need a membership to work out there, all sites.
To do with with our instructors as that ambassador.
It would be.
Correct.
Yeah, I think it would be free to go to, Bob, but for instruction in
For an
classes.
instruction class, there's a cost associated with it, yes.
How would you know the person paid for it?
Well, we
Like
have our
every
own
class.
registration. We
Right.
already run programs at parks where we provide rosters for the program providers. So it would just be like that.
I think it's great. Anybody else have any questions?
So would this, when we're talking about Hayden Silvati, would this be a comprehensive redesign of the park like we did for all the others?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
But it
so
would
it'd just be a piece
the
of that?
focal point. Well, no, this would be the focal point of the park. So the basketball court, it would be a park that's focused on basketball court and an outdoor fitness section with some adjacent parking. And that would be the park.
Right.
But yes, it would be done the same way. It would be a comprehensive review of the space in general. The focal point of this would in essence become a fitness park.
And the park that we already did at the Meadows isn't that far for the children, so
Right.
it's.
Right,
The
that's
actual
just
playground itself has been relocated, yes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's 2 blocks away.
And
Right.
what would the basketball court look like?
The basketball court in this scenario, if you would be so inclined, would be redone.
That's what I was going to
As a
say.
half court still?
Or
No.
full court even?
It would most
If you
likely
look at
be,
the whole space?
it would most likely be regulation. I don't know, we wouldn't pump money into a basketball court and not do regulation. So it would be redone. That's not included in that price. So that in your capital budget meeting,
Have to.
That would
you
have
would
to be
be
a separate-
allocating
yes.
resources for the reconstruction of the basketball court, just like you're doing at Sutcliffe with new basketball standards. And then you'd be doing this outdoor fitness amenity. And then you'd have Haynes and Salvati Park.
Right. Sounds good.
But again, if it's regulation and we start drawing leagues, then we can fund some of this.
That's correct.
stuff.
Correct,
Have another site.
Right.
which Lauren has done a great job on.
I do too.
Well, you figure you have a lot of young adults down there.
Right.
If they get
Well, it's a
into
good-
tournaments and stuff,
It's
that'd
a
be
good way
great.
To drive up the membership of the fellowship.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
That's another amenity
Put it
that
towards Haynes and
is
Salvati.
not really around this area,
Right, it's
around
unique.
this area.
It really
yes.
is. to
Right,
this
it's
area.
great. Right.
And we like being first.
As with the zip line and, the stuff.
Love them zip lines.
Are you able to apply for a grant each year, or is the 30,000 the one-time grant for this
It's a
project?
one-time grant,
Okay.
But that came from them.
correct.
That's great.
They pick areas that,
They do,
right.
they do. They
Amazingly, we
They
made
focus
it.
on areas with high pedestrian traffic, as they did say in the video, and they did come to me, and I had to apply for it. Obviously, I had to go through that process, but
It's great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nice.
So the only thing that we're discussing this evening is in order for us to basically, I'll say, be a placeholder on the National Fitness Campaign's radar with the $30,000, is that they're asking you to sign a resolution which basically is saying that the borough is committed to this concept. They understand, after multiple conversations, how a municipal budget works, and that it is a 2021 budget item that would be for consideration and conversation in your budget conversations that will start in July. So, again, we're bringing it to your attention, number one, to make sure you are aware of how the administration is moving forward. So you've asked us to do comprehensive redo of our park system. Haynes and Salvati is on that list. We're presenting this as our recommended option for that park in terms of vision, and it will be in your capital budget conversation. However, in order for us to basically maintain their contribution of $30,000 towards the project, they're asking for a resolution.
I have one more question for Lauren. Lauren, when your discussions with the National Fitness Campaign folks, do they have programs specifically geared around special needs?
Not that I know of, but it's something that I can ask and see if it's part of their app or...
I would like you to ask that and trigger that in their minds, because that's something that we don't necessarily have in the community.
Right.
And I'm looking at the court, and there are motion activities that our sensory kids probably could gain some
benefit from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Benefits from.
No, I will definitely ask that.
Yeah, that would be great.
This is not for a vote this evening. This is a conversation point. I think that there's, as Mike and I are talking about it, there's some tweaks to the resolution that we'll probably make over the course of the next week. But we really do think that it is a viable option that you should consider for the borough, especially since the opportunity, Lauren found the opportunity, was given the opportunity, but they're expressing the interest in our community based off of our demographic.
It's great.
And thank you for finding the opportunity and
Thank
giving
you,
us the
Lauren.
opportunity to have the conversation.
It's a great option for us. It really is. Thank you.
I think so as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have
No
no other-
legals?
I have no
Okay.
other items.
Public comment? Come on up. Good evening.
Give my name?
Please.
Okay, my name's Dennis Beaver. I live 400 block West 10th Avenue. First thing I want to say is somebody came here, what's my neighbor? I didn't even know she was going to be here. So this is from the heart. I only know her first name, Bernadette. I don't even know her husband's name. We may or may not even get along, but I know Bernadette's the type of person that there's a problem in the neighborhood, she'll be the first to get things organized together. Years ago, she did things like to collect for people for flowers when they died. We had skunk problems. She collected money and she got rid of the skunks. You know, a problem that affected us, but the borough couldn't take care of. She has knowledge in plant life. She just helps everybody. She gave me help with some of my trees, and there's other people she just helps all the time. I'm telling you, you would be lucky to have her.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have comments of my own.
Okay.
And you're not going to like them.
We knew they were coming, Dennis. It's okay.
Okay, I want to talk about the sewer. Again, third time, starting in 1980. 1980, we needed a new sewer system, and we put that together. This is based on the problems. Should we sell it or not? I really don't know. But one thing I feel is that if the business wants to sell it, the residential area might not want to. And guess what? I live in a residential area. So I just don't know. I tried to talk to Bob about it, and he's not gotten back to me yet, but I'm sure I'd like Bob, but we talk straightforward.
Because we don't know nothing yet.
We don't know.
But just to give you my thing about it, the residents paid money to build it back in the 80s. And then we came up to 2010. I might have disagreed with it, but it went through. What they did is single property owners suffered because they had to pay a usage fee and then they were paid per gallon. Now, you had your businesses, your apartment houses, your large apartment houses, your small landlords had 2 or 3 tenants. They only paid that usage fee, which means a family of 4 was paying, let's say, I don't know what the number was, but let's just say it was like $60. And a place that's down by the river that may have 50 to 100 people in each building, they might have had 3 lines going in there where they were paying $150. I think that was unfair. And now to sell it, now I'm not sure of this, but I think we own the property. We went through this a couple years ago. I think I call consecrated Conshohocken ground. So we'll be selling that ground ended. It might be to our benefit, but I wish you would really look into it carefully and keep the residents informed.
Yeah.
The second thing I have to go is the park. They had a problem over there with vandalism. I can't remember how many years ago it was. And me and Bob were talking, and I said, Bob, look, I'll go over check on it. You know, I'll clean the bathrooms, this, until you get everything settled. He might remember that.
I remember.
And when I went over there was some kids in the pavilion. And I can't say for sure, but I'm almost positive they're responsible for breaking into the bathrooms. Sat down, I talked to the kids. I said, look, stay here, no problems, right? If you don't cause problems. And they reacted to it. And I used to go over there, I cleaned the bathroom, and then I used to come back like at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, the kids would be gone. Sometimes I get over there early at 7 o'clock, they'd still be there. But they never did any vandalism. And the only point that I'm making is what somebody else made here, that community service helps when you have people involved.
Watch it out.
Let me get here. Now the vandalism's come back.
Yeah, crew.
You know, I've been over there myself. They don't bother me. You know, I'm old. They shouldn't be afraid of me, but, you know, maybe I'm big in the dark and they can't tell that I'm old. But I walk through there at the dark and they don't bother me. I understand, don't we have organizations or something that come there and rent the space, the pavilion or something?
Oh,
So this guy has an excellent idea. If he wants to put his time in, more people you got there on a jet, the more things don't happen. And the second thing I want to make sure I tell you, there was something in the Conshohocken, whatever they call that thing on the internet. I'm not internet savvy, so. And it said something about the police sleeping over there. I want to tell you something, whether it's true or not. I asked them if they would come there and sit there for 15 minutes if they had it or something. That was me. You got me to blame for that, not them. When I seen that in there, that somebody said that they shouldn't be sleeping, I said, damn, that's my fault. I'm sorry for the word. Other than that, I got one more thing. I wrote it down because I got Alzheimer's. No, you don't. I just forgive it. The alleyways, famous thing. I knew you don't want to hear this.
I got another good idea.
I hope you do. But the first thing I want is like, you can't give tickets, but you got in the code that you give tickets. You know, when you drive down the alley, in fact, the other thing, my neighbor said, he paid to do his own thing.
Yes, he did.
He paid and did, I wouldn't have done it. Goodies. We're not exactly friends, but I appreciate when somebody does something like that. I wouldn't do it. But they put traffic signs. Now, when you go to the park, which we talked about tonight, and the back there is the alleyway. When you go to the 400 block of 10th Avenue, half of that belongs to the residents, and half of that belongs to Sutcliffe Park. They have signs up there, one pointing down and one pointing the other way. What that does is that encourages people who are coming up from Caldwell Avenue to come up to the alleyway at 10th and come up the alleyway between 10th and 11th and drive up there to get to the park. Now, if you can't put signs, why is there signs over there? Another thing, when you go down to where the business is, the Bowman Hill Caldwell Lane, try it sometime. When you drive down there, because of the deli, I don't know what shops are there, the cleaners and all. When you're in a car, you can't see the cars coming, especially if there's a truck there. And right now, it is an alleyway, it's not a street, but they are parked right up to the entrance, like this, where you can just squeeze through. I'm not asking nobody to get a ticket. I'm just asking somebody to say, put a sign up saying park 15 feet from that corner where the alleys are. Other than that, after taking your time, you know I'm not coming back. That should please you. So I got it all out, 10 years worth.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for
Dennis,
listening to me.
just so you know, the sewer authority has changed the EDUs regarding large buildings, and they're now being charged appropriately.
That's a good thing.
Okay.
So can I kind of tag on to what Dennis was talking about with alleyways? So I recently, over the last couple of weeks, have gotten calls from residents about the traffic now is pushing into the alleyways. And is there anything that can be done about driving fast in the alleyways, those kinds of things? So what I said was I would bring it here as a discussion. We know the alleyways are owned by the residents, each half. What are some options that residents may do or need to do or about speed in the alleyways? Let's start with that one.
You're asking?
Yes, I'm
As far
looking
as
at
like-
you.
It's considered a traffic way.
Okay.
And private property that you can drive a car on is not a highway, it's considered a traffic way. So things like DUI and things like that can be enforced, reckless driving, as far as speed. To enforce a speed law, it has to be posted, and a traffic way is not a highway. Like you could put a speed limit sign in the mall parking lot, the police can't enforce it, it's a traffic way. You understand? So the alley being privately owned is the same situation as far as speed. They're not, if you're driving a car, you're not exempt from all traffic laws.
So if I'm a private resident, can I put a sign up in my property that says slow down, kids at play? Can I put a speed bump in an alley? Like, these are all the questions that I'm being asked, so I figured I'd throw them out here.
Signs might be fine. I wouldn't.
They don't
The borough
work.
can't be making any representations or suggestions about speed bumps and stuff like that, except forbid a car get damaged.
I'm just asking the question that was asked of me. If I own the alley, then can I put something in the way to slow cars down?
I don't think we should be taking a position on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can answer that way. I just.
Yeah, I mean, the borough shouldn't be making any recommendations about that type of thing. They'd have to hire a private attorney to ask them that question, unfortunately. If that makes sense. I just don't
So
want to
can the
be-
borough give any recommendations on alleyways?
No, we should not be giving any
Okay.
recommendations on that.
Then that will be my answer. Thank you.
I have such a unique one. I have such a unique alley. It's alleyway with Robin.
May I pose a question along the same
Sure.
subject
Sure.
matter? Thank you, Dennis, you reminded me of something. So with similar reference, Mr. Beaver and I live on the same block, we have for many years, and I appreciate his support for me. But when it comes to the alley, Mike and I we put out about $2,000, it's about $1,850, and paved our side, repaved our half, and as far down and up as we could go to kind of help our neighbors out a little bit. The reason we did that was, part of the reason is, the UPS truck that delivers. And I've had a handful of conversations with him, and now I'm not, I've had times when I've worked from home, I've had times when I've worked different jobs where I would be home during the day and was able to observe it. I haven't observed it now for a couple of years, but had to have some conversations with him. And he explained to me, he said, well, it makes my trip faster if I can go up the alley instead of 11th Avenue. He will fly up the alley.
Yep.
And because of the tremendous amount of potholes that now exist on that block, and I don't drive the alleys around town often.
Rally's the worst in the borough.
I don't know where ours falls on that scale. I know that outside, where we were, the gravel would fly up and it pelleted the front of Mike's truck. I mean, literally, the front of his truck was just pockmarked. Now, what do you do with that? So we put the money out to have that area paved to try to reduce the damage to his truck. So just an insight, I don't know what we can do about commercial vehicles that speed up the alley.
Is that reckless driving that you're would that be reckless driving?
Well, reckless is, it could be careless driving.
Okay.
Reckless is a more serious.
Uh-huh. So can you cite careless driving on private property? In alleys?
And are
Yeah,
they
yeah,
actually
you could.
allowed to?
Like I said, you're not
to
exempt
use them?
from all,
You're not supposed to go up the alleyways.
from all, it's really an interesting question. I don't, like, it never goes
Right.
away. Like,
Well,
what is it?
The use of
I don't
commercial
know.
vehicle, like the use of the alley by a commercial vehicle as a throughway, as opposed to me driving up the alley to park in my parking spot, by the way,
Right.
paved parking spot. And if I could just segue, I've had an issue, and I spoke with Bob about this probably 20 years ago at this point, and we still have the same issue.
Yeah.
There's a vehicle, and it's a commercial vehicle that parks in the alley outside of their two-car garage, and it impedes our access to our paved parking. It does it every day of the week, and I've been quiet for 30 years, except when I spoke to Bob 15, 20 years ago. I took pictures at different times of the day. It's a plumbing truck that sits on the 400 block of West 10th Avenue, on the 11th Avenue side. I would appreciate it if there's something that could be done. I've even had the point where I had a conversation with the gentleman, for lack of a better term, and he called the police on me. And the police came to the door. And when they saw me, they laughed. And I said, I'm sorry that you were put out, officers. But he said, well, he said that you cursed at him. I said, I did. I said, because of the way that he's disrespected me all of these years. His father disrespected me, and my husband, and now he does. And I don't like to be petty about this stuff, but hearing you folks talk about it tonight, we can't park. We can't get into our spot. I hit his truck once because my foot slipped off of the clutch, and we're on a hill. So I'd love for somebody to somehow be able to address that, because I would like to, especially now, we're getting older. When we park out there, it's because we might be unloading stuff, or we might be having to bring stuff in. And if we stick out a little bit because that vehicle's there, nobody can get through the alley. So, including a fire engine.
Right.
So, I think that there's preferential treatment given to the person who lives there and who parks there. And I don't know if I could write a letter, I don't know what I can do at this point. I could pull out, I probably still have the files because I'm organized, that I sent to Bob all those years ago, and nothing was ever done. No offense, Bob, but nothing was ever done or said or changed. So, and it's a commercial vehicle.
The problem is, years ago, and Jerry McTavish had the best secret. He made up his own rules, and people believed in what he said.
Mhm.
Nobody ever parked in the alleys, because it was always a fire truck had to get up there.
Mhm.
Well, that's
And
true.
then, no, Jerry always had everybody, even with the political signs. We never had an ordinance about political signs, but he said we did. And he went around, took them all down, put them in his trunk, and took them down to Public Works. And he ran this town with an iron fist. But getting back to, he owns half the alley, you own it. And I fight with these.
But I thought there was,
Council for years
I believe
about
there's
these
an
alleys.
ordinance, Bob, about parking in the alleys. I don't think that we're allowed to park in the alleys.
You can't, there is no ordinance about that.
No, there's no ordinance.
There is
No ordinance about
Yeah,
that?
so the situation that you're running into, I've run into countless times, and unfortunately, my clients have to file in court private actions against their neighbors, and I know that's not what anyone wants to do.
Do we need to make an ordinance
That
so you
is
can't
the
park in
only
the
way
alley
to fix it.
except if you have a
Isn't there an
garage?
ordinance that commercial vehicles can't be parked in the alleys?
No.
Was there ever at any time?
No.
No, it's only on the street.
It would not be enforceable in private.
Jerry McTavish had his own ordinance.
Okay, because I never had
He
a
had
conversation with
many of
Jerry.
them, and he enforced, right, Dennis?
Okay, here's what I want to tell you. You may not be
Thank you for
aware
your
of
time.
this,
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
but I talked to a policeman once about it, right? Nice guy. And I said, look, I want to give you a scenario. The guy's parked alongside his, well, first of all, let me start this way. This is how this thing started. The houses that are on that side never had, that side should be the 11th Avenue side of the alley, never had garages. The houses with the 10th side were built with them. When the people 11th Avenue went to the borough to get their permit to build a garage, they had agreed to take their property back an additional 7 feet, because it would tell you if 2 cars backed out of the garage went together, they both couldn't get out. The garages would be useful. So they did that. So now, a lot of times, the problem she's having, they think that's an additional parking space. And I know you say you can't do nothing about it, so here's what I asked the policeman. The guy in back of me parks his car, and it's halfway in the alleyway, or a quarter of a way, or whatever. And then I pull my car up next to it. There's no room. The alleyway is completely blocked. So I said, who gets the ticket? Remember, you do have an ordinance that said you must keep a 10-foot width or whatever it is. You did an ordinance. You put an ordinance there, so you got to keep a 10-foot width for emergency vehicles. Who gets the ticket? He says to me, oh, the other guy. I said, well, how do you know who the other guy is? If it's me or him. I mean, this problem's been haunting us. Not only that, the sewer pipes are down there. I don't have a problem with that. But it's not just UPS trucks. I've seen tractor trailers come up there.
What?
Tractor trailers come up there. You have signs all along Fayette Street, no truck throughway. You have signs coming back up, across Elm Street, going through Maple, no truck through. You have signs coming back up Coa Avenue, all the way up to 11th, no trucks through. What do? They take the alley, because there's no signs there. Now, the biggest problem that I think could help, and it's on the street, I don't know what you would consider, but if you would no parking to the quarter and put a sign there that says no truck through, outside on the corner of it. It's a business there. There are businesses there. Don't make no mistake. Caldwell, we used to be Caldwell Arms. I don't know what they are now.
That's 30 years ago, Caldwell Arms.
Yeah, but I lived in this borough for 50 years.
Dennis,
I lived on 10th Avenue for 48.
It's something we can look into to see if it's possible for us to do.
Something, and you said they had signs up there before. How could you have signs up there before it was illegal? Why was it legal then and now
Put you on the
illegal?
alley committee this year, all right?
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just arguing.
I know, Dennis, we appreciate your comments and your suggestions, and it's things that we can look into to see what we are able to do. I think that's
All I
the
gotta
best
tell
we
you
can,
is,
right.
long time ago, a guy told me, don't worry about the bullet that hit you. I said, I'm sorry, I'm worried.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment? Okay, Mayor Aronson?
Okay. So you all know we had the fire at Sherry Lake a couple weeks ago. And the borough really came together to support the families in need. The mayor's committee had caravans of cars going all over the area and dropping off clothing donations, and the response was overwhelming. I want to say thank you to everyone who donated this past week, and a big thank you to Guppy's and Conshohocken Brewing Company, who not only hosted bins, but opened up their storerooms and closets to put all these items, because there were so many. Residents' donations helped local organizations around the community, including Colonial Neighborhood Council, Salvation Army, Sales Barbershop, Homeless Blanket Drive, Goodwill, and the county's Access Services Homeless Street Outreach Program. So we truly have an amazing community. All our local pantries are just overstocked right now. And I just got a call from Bridgeport. They ran their own. They have nowhere to take all this stuff because everyone's so full. So pretty amazing. And then we, Sarah and I joined Officer Vallone from our police department at the Weeks of Welcome at Conshohocken Elementary last week. We got to cheer on students as they went to class in the morning and heard them sing the school song. It's as a teacher, it's one of my favorite events of the year because it makes it exciting for students to go to school and also show that we support them and we think going to school is like a cool thing. So thank you, Principal Marks, for organizing this awesome yearly event. That's it.
Thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I have two things. I asked a while back about the council meetings, how many people view them with Verizon and Comcast. Can we get some kind of count?
I'll get you a number.
I'm just curious. And also.
Concerned that they're not watching it?
No, I'm just curious because, there's people here tonight, maybe eight borough employees and maybe 4 or 5 residents. And, it's great that they come, but.
Well, I know if there's an issue with it airing, we hear about it.
We absolutely, Kate and I absolutely hear about it if it doesn't air. Yeah.
If there's an issue with it not airing on time, or it's late, or it's.
That's good.
No, not on time. I'm just interested because if I'm gonna say, if I'm gonna.
I don't know if I can get you an actual number.
Just a ballpark, because if I'm.
Yeah, I will try to get you data that will illustrate to you that people are actually watching.
Okay, because what I'm gonna say and what I say, there's only a few people hearing. But if I have thousands of people listening to our meeting, which,
That's a great thing.
It's a great thing, but I have this newsletter, and it's very good, okay? But on page 14, and I introduced this to get this ordinance going about the addresses. But we're doing, and it says here all about the rentals, that we're going to, as the rentals turn over and the rentals, we're going to make them put the addresses. But it's more important for the residents of this town to have, with the alleys, now I'm going to talk about the alleys again. So I witnessed something, my little grandson, he's 18 months, 3 times last month he went to the emergency in an ambulance. He had a seizure, okay? And lucky our police department and Narberth Ambulance did a terrific job. They got there fast. But it's about time. It's about time. Ambulance get into your house or police get into your house. Even if a police goes up the alley, what do they got to do, count the houses?
Right.
But I think we missed the point with this. The point was to make everybody, residents, rentals, to put their address if they have alleys, in the back of the house and in the front of the house. Because if you go up the streets, the avenues, you'll see that maybe a quarter of them don't have addresses on their homes. And it's hard for the police and the emergency people to find. If you don't have an address, you got to, especially in the alley, you got to count the houses. So I think if we can redo this ordinance or get another ordinance to make sure that the residents know this.
So the intent is that.
Okay.
So we started last year with the rental ordinance because it's a cycle every 2 years. So we thought we would hit the majority of the actual locations through implementing that with the rental. And then the next idea is that we would alter the UNO process so that it's required with the sale of a house. So that is the next step of what you asked us to
And
do.
stress at the meetings, the televised meetings, that people should do that.
Yep.
And I will.
Well, I think you've
I
done
will.
a good job of doing that. So
I got mine. You did a good job.
Good. But I think it's really, really, and I witnessed last month.
Right.
yeah, at the end of the day, Bob, if you're urging people to do it and people are watching and they can do it outside of it being.
Right, they should just do it anyway.
Right. And I agree with you, many houses don't have it out
Oh, yeah.
front even.
Yeah.
So that makes it
they don't.
difficult.
Yeah.
And then we have the houses that are
Maybe
like
that's
1.5,
something that license
309 and a
inspection
half.
can work on.
There's these little odd ones that it doesn't help anyone if they don't have their addresses out.
So maybe for the front of the houses, maybe that's something that license and inspections can work on in their
Thank you.
processes. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Anita?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be your delegate at the PSAB conference. And also, if any of you happen to want to propose a resolution to the PSAB, they are due April 8th. We're still pushing for the radar. It has never
the
gone through,
boroughs.
but we do it every year.
Right.
We're hoping to get a few more. And I think if more people were to voice their opinion on it, it may get it passed.
Is it something you need people to sign, Anita, or how
No,
could
the
we support
resolution
it?
the resolution just comes from the borough. You write up what you want to do on the resolution. All the council is named. We don't have to sign it, just, make
the
sure our names are
resolution.
on it. And then I take it to the PSAB. But I have to have it before April 8th in order to get
So
it
we'd
to.
have to put it on
Yeah,
one of the new,
exactly.
maybe March
Yeah.
1st.
And I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Jane?
I have nothing for this evening.
Gina?
Yeah, council, I would like to just address the Friends of Marywood Park Committee had a meeting this week, and they had asked permission prior to do a spring festival. We are going to actually pull back a little bit on that. We're looking at the work and the cost of that, and really what we need to focus on right now in order to have an event like that is to actually fundraise first. So we're going to look at different ways to tag onto existing events and promote Friends of Marywood Park House for fundraising. So we just took a step back to try and take a deep breath and figure out how we can fundraise so that we can support those kinds of fun events as we move forward in a larger scale.
Mike? Karen?
So separate from the discussion that we had on the parking task force a little earlier, we have Temple grad students that as part of their graduate program will be doing a borough-wide parking study. So I think what I'm asking permission from council for us to do a listening session.
So it would not be the borough hosting it. It would be the Temple grad students utilizing a borough resource like the community center, for example, to utilize space to, for some sort of public forum in order to gather information that they need for their study.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
do we need everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Just have a comment on that. We've had that run through the borough before, and I would just ask you to be very certain that you get something back from them. A lot of times they've done their studies, they've taken up time from staff and council people and stakeholders in the community, and then we haven't really gotten back what we thought we were going to get back. So just be very clear with them. That
Thank you,
get back
thank
what
you.
You get back something.
Okay.
But I think they said they're not graduating. This is their final.
Yeah, this is their portfolio, so we've been told that they will not graduate unless they produce the report.
But thank you.
They do produce the report.
But not to the borough.
Where you want it to.
Right.
And you want to get something for the borough, because they are getting what they need out of it.
Okay.
And if you get one thing back from them that you might be able to build on, then it will be worth the time that they're going to need you to put in.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do we actually finish that? Everyone is yes? Okay. No, I meant with Karen's. We're all go with that. Chief Metz?
I would like you all to know that Officer Kammerer was named Montgomery County SWAT Officer of the Year last year.
That's great.
And he's the third member of our department that has held that title. And that's all the there's the biggest SWAT team in the county is the Montgomery County SWAT. And there's a bunch of departments that are involved in it. And 3 of your officers have been Officer of the Year in recent time. And they're considering Officer Kammerer for a leadership position in that thing. So anytime I get a chance to brag about my people who work for us, I want to do it. And
That's great.
it really is something I'm really proud of.
It's a great honor. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Anyone else? Meeting adjourned.